The cabbage came out of my storage ring at exactly the wrong moment. It shot across the graduation sponsorship platform, bounced once on the polished jade floor, and rolled into the boot of Director Yao, regional head of the Crimson Antler Hunters Guild. There are moments when a person can preserve her dignity. This was not one of them. Director Yao looked down at the cabbage. Then he looked at me. Behind him stood 200 final-year students, 30 teachers, 12 guild recruiters, and Yao Zhengkai, the academy's top-ranked martial student and Director Yao's only son. Zhengkai's mouth tightened. He was trying not to laugh. I respected the effort, even though I planned to resent him for it later. The contract on the table between us offered me equipment, training, and permission to sit the National Hunter Qualification examination. In exchange, Crimson Antler would receive 40% of my dungeon earnings for 12 years and permanent ownership of every martial technique I created during that period. I had been given 3 minutes to sign. My ring had apparently used 2 of them to locate emergency vegetables. A translucent diagram unfolded across my vision. Only I could see it. Lines of blue light spread around the cheap brass ring on my right hand, separating its inner formation into layers. MARA, the martial architecture reconstruction assistant lodged inside my soul, delivered its conclusion in the same calm tone it used for every disaster. Spatial recursion defect detected. I kept my face still. How defective? Current stable capacity, 0.74 cubic meters. I know that part. Estimated theoretical capacity after reconstruction, undefined. That got my attention. Director Yao pushed the contract closer. Su Lian, this is your final opportunity. Sign, and Crimson Antler will sponsor your examination. Refuse, and the Academy cannot certify any unregistered martial system you use during the test. I was 18 years old, ranked 91st among 126 martial students, and 3 months from graduating 9 Rivers Cultivation High School with no clan, no sponsor, and no money for a private manual. My mother sold dumplings from a street cart. My combat uniform had 2 carefully repaired sleeves. My spatial ring had cost 9 spirit credits from a clearance basket labeled defective ITEMS, no RETURNS. And the most advanced martial method I legally owned was printed for free in the first-year physical education handbook. Director Yao assumed this made me desperate. He was correct. He also assumed desperate meant obedient. That was where his calculations began to suffer. I picked up the contract and read the final page again. Crimson Antler could relocate me without consent. It could suspend my license. It could assign debt for equipment damage. It could claim ownership of techniques developed from guild-supported experiences, which was broad enough to include breathing near a guild building. I set it down. No. A murmur passed through the hall. Director Yao did not raise his voice. Powerful people rarely need to. Without guild certification, you cannot use your experimental techniques in the examination. I'll use a registered method. You do not own one. I own the 12 Civic Foundation Forms. Someone in the student rows coughed to hide a laugh. The 12 forms were free exercises taught to children, retirees, injured workers, and people recovering from meridian fever. Calling them a martial system was like calling a soup spoon a battlefield weapon. To be fair, I had once used a soup spoon as a weapon. It had gone better than expected. Zhengkai stepped forward. He was tall, composed, and irritatingly neat. Even his dark blue academy sash looked as though it had signed a contract promising never to wrinkle. Lian, he said, the examination begins in 21 days. You cannot rebuild your entire cultivation path in 3 weeks. I looked at the cabbage by his father's boot. MARA highlighted the incomplete recursive formation in my ring. Then it projected the internal structures of the 12 Civic Foundation Forms, which I had practiced thousands of times, because they were the only techniques I could afford to analyze safely. 12 simple movements, 12 stable chi patterns, 12 pieces of a system nobody respected. I don't need to rebuild my cultivation path, I said. That was bravado. I absolutely needed to rebuild my cultivation path. I only need to finish what everyone else stopped studying. Director Yao withdrew the contract. Then you will enter the examination independently. If you fail the practical requirement, your public training subsidy becomes repayable. The figure appeared on the contract. 2,400 spirit credits. My mother would have to sell dumplings for 19 months without eating, sleeping, paying rent, or purchasing dumpling ingredients. I swallowed. Zhengkai noticed. His expression softened, which somehow annoyed me more than arrogance would have. You still have time to reconsider. The cabbage rolled another inch and stopped against my shoe. I picked it up, brushed dust from its leaves, and placed it back inside the ring. The ring gave a faint metallic hiccup. MARA displayed a warning. Internal storage at 98% capacity. I had 21 days to transform a free school warm-up into an examination-grade Marshall system, repair a spatial ring nobody competent would have purchased, and qualify as a hunter without allowing Crimson Antler to own my future. At the time, the impossible part seemed obvious. I had no idea the cabbage was going to become the most reliable member of my equipment loadout. The 12 Civic Foundation Forms were performed every morning by approximately 9 million citizens of the Jade Meridian Republic. Most of those citizens performed them badly. I knew this because I spent the next 6 hours watching recordings. Form 1 aligned the spine and opened the lower meridians. Form 2 shifted weight through the hips. Form 3 coordinated breath with chi circulation. The remaining 9 covered stepping, turning, guarding, striking, redirecting force, recovering balance, and returning chi to a neutral rhythm. They were safe. They were simple. They were also painfully inefficient. MARA identified 712 wasted movements before lunch. I removed the first 34. The result threw me into a wall. Not dramatically. I did not fly through the air or leave a person-shaped crater. My stance simply lost structural balance, my right foot slid, and I struck the training room wall with enough dignity to make the wall feel embarrassed for me. Shen Xian watched from a bench beside the healing kit. You finished improving martial arts? She asked. No. Good, I was worried the wall had won. Xian was in the academy's healing and rescue track. She wore her black hair in a thick braid and had the unnerving habit of noticing when people were lying about pain. I rubbed my shoulder. The removed movements were inefficient. They were also holding you upright. I noticed. You noticed after the wall. MARA replayed the collapse in slow motion. The so-called wasted motions were not all mistakes. Some were safety buffers. The 12 forms had been designed for millions of bodies with different heights, strengths, injuries, and meridian structures. A universal method needed extra movement because it could not assume anything about its user. On Earth, before I died and woke in this world as a newborn with 2 sets of memories, I had worked with motion analysis software. My team built artificial intelligence that studied athletes, factory workers, and rehabilitation patients. The system could break movement into measurable components, predict injury risk, and generate personalized adjustments. My executives called it revolutionary. They also removed my name from the final presentation. When I objected, they told me contribution mattered more than recognition. 3 years later, I died during a commuter transport failure while replying to an email in which the same executive asked me to fix another project before sunrise. Reincarnation had given me many surprises. One was chi. Another was discovering that workplace bitterness could survive death. MARA had appeared when I awakened my spiritual sense at 13. It seemed to be a soul-bound reflection of the program I had spent my previous life building. except now it could observe chi as well as physical movement. It was powerful. It was also literal, incomplete, and incapable of preventing me from giving stupid instructions. Restore the 34 removed components, I told it. Restored. Create a model using my exact physical structure instead of the national average. Required data insufficient. I stared at the message. What data? Fatigue response, meridian pressure tolerance, joint instability, recovery time, chi leakage under emotional stress. Lian leaned over my shoulder, even though she could not see the interface. It wants you to stop pretending your body is a diagram. That is not what it said. That is what your face said. Mo Kyan arrived carrying 3 measurement crystals, 2 toolboxes, and a paper bag that smelled of sesame buns. Mo was an equipment maintenance student with narrow shoulders, quick hands, and the spiritual pressure of an annoyed house cat. He wanted to become a hunter quartermaster, which meant everyone asked him to repair things while continuing to describe him as not really a hunter. He placed the bag on the bench. For scientific accuracy, he announced, I brought breakfast. It is 2 in the afternoon. Late breakfast remains breakfast if you are irresponsible enough. We spent the next 4 days collecting data. I performed each civic form while tired, rested, hungry, full, distracted, irritated, and once while Mo read guild advertisement slogans in an inspirational voice. Crimson Antler, he proclaimed, where courage becomes contractual obligation. My chi circulation immediately worsened by 11%. MARA marked the condition as hostile psychological interference. Lian nearly fell off her chair laughing. By the 5th evening, MARA possessed enough information to personalize the first 3 forms. The result was not a new technique. It was a moving correction system. When my right knee turned too far inward, the chi flow shifted to stabilize it. When my breathing shortened, circulation slowed instead of forcing more energy through a tense meridian. When fatigue weakened my shoulders, the stance adjusted through my hips. I named it the self-correcting meridian lattice. Mo named it the heaven-rewriting divine skeleton engine. Lian named it standing properly. The first full test lasted 30 minutes. My cultivation did not suddenly leap. No heavenly light descended. No ancient ancestor appeared in the clouds to regret overlooking me. But my chi consumption dropped by 31%. I completed the sequence twice while using less energy than I had previously used once. Then the room tilted. I woke on the floor with Lian pressing 2 fingers to my wrist. What happened? You used your invisible calculation thing until your brain stopped cooperating. MARA is not invisible. It is privately perceptible. You fainted into a bucket. I sat up. The metal bucket had acquired a dent shaped like my forehead. MARA displayed a new warning. High-complexity analysis causes cognitive depletion. Recommended recovery interval, 6 hours. I had discovered the first limit. My system could optimize technique, but it used my mind as the furnace. Lian crossed her arms. You are telling us everything before the next test. I am. That answer was too fast. I am telling you almost everything. She narrowed her eyes. I had learned the hard way in 2 lives that valuable work attracted people who wanted ownership. Even with Lian and Mo, a small part of me wanted to keep the core of MARA entirely mine. Not because I distrusted them. Because I trusted the existence of consequences more than I trusted people. Mo handed me a bun. 20 days left. 19, Lian corrected. I stood, slower this time, and began Form 1 again. The lattice adjusted around my bruised shoulder and tired legs. It was not powerful. Not yet. But for the first time in my life, a system I had helped create was correcting itself around me instead of demanding that I damage myself to fit it. That felt like a beginning. The next technique began with my feet and ended with me under a table. Traditional martial footwork was taught as a sequence of precise positions: forward crescent step, revering reed step, 8-corner pursuit. Students memorized patterns until their bodies could reproduce them without thought. MARA disliked fixed patterns. It analyzed balance, friction, terrain, momentum, and likely movement routes, then suggested the smallest useful adjustment. On a flat training floor, the result looked unimpressive. On wet stones beside the academy pond, it made me almost impossible to corner. I called it unwritten step because no two uses were identical. Mo called it the 10,000 roads immortal escape. Lian called it walking with unnecessary confidence. The table incident occurred when Mo rolled an empty barrel toward me during testing. MARA predicted the barrel's path. I shifted left. Mo slipped, struck the barrel from behind, and changed its direction. The barrel clipped my ankle. I landed beneath a folding table with one foot sticking out. MARA reported, unmodeled human incompetence detected. Mo leaned over the table. Was that me? Yes. I feel seen. The problem was important. MARA predicted efficient responses from available data, but irrational behavior created too many possible outcomes. Monsters were dangerous, but frightened students were worse. At least monsters rarely pretended they had understood instructions. I adapted the technique by adding uncertainty margins. It became slower. It also stopped trying to place me exactly where falling furniture was about to arrive. My next project was the basic straight punch from Form 7. Most techniques concentrated force into a single release. The stronger the cultivator, the greater the impact. I lacked both strength and cultivation. MARA suggested timing. Instead of one burst, I released 7 smaller pulses through the same motion. The first attempt produced 7 weak taps. The second made my elbow numb. On the 63rd attempt, the pulses traveled through the training post in sequence and shook loose every fastening peg on its back. The post remained upright for 3 seconds. Then it collapsed into 12 pieces. Mo stared. Lian stared. I stared. MARA displayed. Structural interruption successful. Mo placed both hands over his heart. The 7-fold mountain-ending fist. No. The 7 heavens coffin-knocking art. Absolutely not. Lian crouched beside the dismantled post. You did not overpower it. You loosened everything holding it together. That became 7-layer pulse. It worked best against rigid structures, fixed guards, armor plates, and formation barriers. Against flexible targets, much of the force dispersed. My public ranking began to rise. I defeated a student ranked 74th by interrupting his iron gate guard. Then I defeated number 62 by breaking the rhythm of her rotating spear form. I did not strike hard enough to injure either of them. I simply caused their techniques to stop behaving as expected. Students started watching my practice sessions. Some mocked the civic forms until they saw what emerged from them. Others began copying my movements without understanding the internal adjustments. Zhengkai waited until the crowd was large before asking for a spar. I should have refused. I accepted because intelligence and maturity are not always scheduled for the same hour. We faced each other inside the 3rd training court. Zhengkai used the Crimson Antler Flowing Fang system, a commercial method built around sharp changes in direction and short explosive releases. It required expensive meridian conditioning, but his control was excellent. MARA mapped his stance. Likely opening attack, right diagonal entry. He moved right. I shifted with unwritten step. He stopped halfway, reversed, and touched 2 fingers to my shoulder before I could recover. The court judge called the point. On the second exchange, MARA predicted a low sweep. Zhengkai began the movement, saw my weight change, and converted it into an upward palm. Another point. By the 5th exchange, I understood. He was not fighting my body. He was feeding false information to my analysis. I stopped following MARA's primary recommendations and relied on wider probability ranges. That kept me standing longer. It did not help me win. Zhengkai trapped my retreat, struck my guard with a controlled burst, and sent me sliding out of the marked court. He offered his hand. I considered refusing for approximately half a second, then accepted because lying on the floor to preserve pride rarely works. "You are improving quickly," he said. "You sound disappointed." "I am concerned." "That sounds worse." He lowered his voice. "You understand systems. You do not yet understand opponents. A technique designed around correct predictions becomes fragile when someone knows how you think." I hated him for being right. Then he looked at the watching students. They should not copy what they do not understand. That part was also right. Later that evening, I returned to the artifact workshop with Mo and opened the spatial ring's outer formation. The ring's defect was stranger than I expected. A standard storage artifact created a single folded pocket. Mine attempted to create a second pocket inside the first, then another inside that. The recursion should have expanded capacity, but the coordinate index could not track the layers. The ring did not lack space. It had lost the address. MARA and I rebuilt the index around my chi signature. Capacity rose from 0.74 cubic meters to 3. The energy leak fell from 18% to 4. Mo slid the ring onto his finger to test the ownership seal. He peered inside. "What do you see?" I asked. "One cabbage." "That is impossible." He removed the ring. "You have created a soul-bound vegetable vault." When I wore it again, my tools and spare uniform were still inside. The cabbage sat alone in the false pocket, visible to anyone else. I should have regarded that as a warning. Instead, I felt triumphant. I had rebuilt 2 things everyone considered worthless. One had helped me rise 29 places in the school rankings. The other could now hold 3 cubic meters and insult thieves with produce. I was beginning to think I understood what I was doing. That was usually when my life became educational. Lantern House Rescue Guild held its field trials in a low-risk rift called Bent Willow Hollow. Low risk did not mean safe. It meant the monsters were unlikely to eat you unless you made several consecutive poor decisions. Our assignment was to enter in teams of 3, retrieve 6 damaged formation stakes, stabilize 3 collapsing platforms, and evacuate 4 wooden rescue constructs before the rift shifted at sunset. Lian wanted Lantern House to sponsor her after graduation. Her parents wanted her to join a prestigious healing hall in the capital, where she could treat rich cultivators for respectable injuries acquired in private gardens. She preferred pulling ordinary people out of unstable rifts. Her parents considered this evidence that the academy had damaged her judgment. Mo joined because Lantern House needed quartermasters, and because they allowed support track students to earn field licenses. I joined because the trial granted independent qualification points. Also, Lantern House charged only 5 spirit credits. Crimson Antler charged 40. Principles become easier to defend when they are discounted. Bent Willow Hollow looked like a forest that had been folded, shaken, and put back incorrectly. Stone paths tilted into the air. Trees grew sideways from cliff faces. Pools reflected skis that did not belong above us. My fixed school footwork would have been useless. Unwritten step adapted. MARA tracked the changing angle beneath my boots and shifted my balance before each surface moved. For the first time, the technique felt less like following instructions and more like carrying on a conversation with the ground. Lian moved behind me with a healer's pack. Mo carried tools, emergency food, and enough rope to restrain a small mountain. We found the first damaged platform after 14 minutes. Its central formation stake had split. Mo knelt beside it. "I can repair the casing, but the rift pressure will keep forcing it apart." I studied Form 8, the civic defensive posture. It redirected incoming force through the stance, but most students used it only to block practice strikes. MARA modeled the platform's pressure. Instead of absorbing the force, I sent it through my legs, into the remaining formation anchors, and across the surrounding stone. The platform stopped shaking. My knees did not. Lian placed one hand against my back. Your meridians are overloading. Mo needs 40 seconds. He needs 20. Mo worked faster. At 19 seconds, the new casing locked. I released the stance and sat down before gravity made the decision for me. MARA named the principal returning current frame. Mo named it the world-bearing tortoise body. Lian handed me water. I am nomming your next technique. No. Yes. We continued. At the second platform, my training staff vanished into the ring's expanding storage index. I reached for it and retrieved a soup ladle. Mo had packed cooking equipment. I glared at him. We may need soup. We are in a rift. People become hungry everywhere. A training construct, shaped like a wolf, emerged from the brush. I had 2 seconds to choose between searching the ring again or using the ladle. MARA analyzed the balance point. Form 9, the public staff exercise, was built around axis control rather than weapon shape. I shifted my grip. The ladle became an extension of the same rotational structure. I redirected the construct's charge, struck the release seal beneath its jaw, and deactivated it. Lian looked from the wooden wolf to the ladle. You have become someone's furious ant. MARA registered the new application as Thousand Tool Axis. Mo wanted to call it the Kitchen Sovereign's 10,000 Implements. I threatened to store him in the ring. MARA reminded me that living creatures were prohibited. The most valuable discovery came near the rift's eastern boundary. The ground was covered with gray ashstone fragments. They were discarded remnants from old stabilization arrays. Guild teams normally ignored them because each fragment absorbed only a small amount of loose chi before becoming inert. MARA detected a pattern. The stones did not become inert. They became saturated and needed time to release the energy. Individually, they were nearly worthless. In large numbers, cycled through storage, they could function as a reusable chi buffer. I collected 812 kilograms. The Lantern House examiner watched me fill the ring. You have a large storage artifact for a student. It is mostly defective. That does not look defective. At that moment, the ring ejected the cabbage into his hands. He looked at it. I looked at it. Mo whispered, Grandmother's cupboard has spoken. That was how the name became permanent. We completed the trial in 78 minutes, 12 minutes under the limit. Lantern House posted recordings of the exercise on the Student Guild network. By the next morning, half the academy had seen me stabilize a platform with a public school guard posture and disable a construct using a soup ladle. My rank rose to 43. Guild recruiters began asking teachers about me. Students started practicing altered versions of the civic forms in hallways, courtyards, and dormitories. For one full day, I enjoyed the attention. On the second day, a first-year student collapsed during lunch after trying to copy 7-layer pulse from a recording. He recovered within an hour, but a tight knot of chi had formed near his elbow. The infirmary healer said another 20 repetitions could have permanently damaged the meridian. When I visited him, he looked embarrassed. I thought it was just a punch. It is just a punch, I said. Then I looked at the stabilization seals around his arm. That was the problem. It looked simple because I had rebuilt it around my own body. I had created a personalized technique in public and acted surprised when people assumed it was universal. Zhengkai waited outside the infirmary. He did not look pleased. He looked tired. My sister damaged 3 meridians with an untested technique when she was 16, he said. The creator said anyone could use it. I had not known he had a sister. She survived, he continued, but she never cultivated again. You think Crimson Antler wants control because we fear competition. Sometimes control is what keeps confidence from becoming injury. You stole none of my techniques yet. Not yet. That was poorly phrased. It was honest. He handed me a Crimson Antler testing proposal. Funding, laboratories, medical supervision, and technique certification. The ownership clause remained. I folded the document. You still want everything. We take responsibility for everything. No, you take ownership. He did not deny it. For the first time, refusing him felt less like courage and more like gambling with other people's bodies. I found the missing half of the 12 forms in an archived notebook nobody had opened for 63 years. That sounds dramatic. In reality, Mo dropped a shelf on himself. We were searching the Academy Equipment Archive for old formation indexes when one support bracket failed. Mo caught the shelf with both hands and shouted something unhelpful about dying beneath educational neglect. Lian and I lifted it off him. A sealed notebook slid from behind the backing panel. The cover bore the emblem of the Republic's first Public Cultivation Commission. Inside were handwritten instructor notes. The 12 Civic Foundation Forms had never been intended as a complete method. They were a diagnostic language. Each movement revealed how a body handled weight, breath, circulation, force, and recovery. Instructors were supposed to observe students and modify the forms for individual needs. The safe public version survived. The personalized teaching system disappeared because it required too much time, too many instructors, and too much record keeping. Generations later, people remembered the movements and forgot the purpose. I read the notebook twice. Then I sat on the archive floor, surrounded by dust and obsolete training equipment. I am not inventing this. Lian crouched across from me. You are rebuilding it. That is different. Is it worse? I thought about the first-year student in the infirmary. No, it means the original designers already understood the danger. The final form was called returning to blank. Most teachers treated it as a breathing cooldown. The notebook described it as a neutralization sequence that returned chi to an individual baseline after adaptation. MARA had classified the extra pauses as wasted time. They were safety checks. I spent 4 days rebuilding them. The first version of Blank Page reset interrupted 7-layer pulse before the 7th release. The second stopped the self-correcting meridian lattice entirely and left my legs numb. The third worked, but only while standing still. The 7th allowed me to reset during movement. By the 12th, I could use it to release incompatible circulation patterns without collapsing my entire technique. It did not look powerful. There was no flash, no shockwave, no visible aura. My chi simply returned to its natural rhythm. Lian called it the most important thing I had created. Mo called it the supreme nullification of 10,000 catastrophically bad decisions. I allowed the name because he had found the notebook with his spine. MARA then helped me build safety checkpoints into every technique. If circulation pressure exceeded a threshold, the movement broke itself apart before causing damage. The improvements made my techniques slightly weaker. They also made them teachable. That changed my goal. I no longer wanted only to pass the examination. I wanted to register the civic forms as an open, adaptive framework any public school student could personalize under supervision. The Academy Registration Office rejected my application in 11 minutes. Crimson Antler had submitted one first. The commercial filing was called the Crimson Unified Combat Circuit. It contained modified versions of unwritten step, 7-layer pulse, returning current frame, and the self-correcting meridian lattice. My names did not appear anywhere. The filing claimed the system had been developed through Independent observation of public foundational movements. I read the sentence 3 times. In my previous life, executives had used almost the same wording. Different world. Same species of cowardice. Zhengkai met me outside the registry hall. You knew. He did not pretend otherwise. My father's researchers reconstructed the visible portions from your public demonstrations. You registered my work. You did not register it. I was adding safety systems. And while you waited, students copied incomplete versions. His answer was calm, competent, and infuriating. The guild can test it properly, he said. Join the development team. You will receive credit, salary, and authority over future revisions. Will the Civic Foundation remain free? The public forms are already free. The adaptive method. That would be guild property. I laughed once. It was not because anything was funny. You watched me refuse a contract that would own my work, then decided the problem was that I still had work left to own. His jaw tightened. You are risking lives to protect an idea of independence. And you are using safety as an excuse to turn basic movement into a subscription. The school suspended all public demonstrations of my modifications until the ownership dispute was resolved. I complied. During official practice, I performed the ordinary civic forms exactly as printed. I did not use 7-layer pulse. I did not use unwritten step. I did not publicly teach anything. My rank stopped rising. Crimson Antler began demonstrating its circuit. It was faster than mine. Stronger, too. Guild stimulants increased chi output, while linked wristbands synchronized team circulation. 6 students could move like parts of the same body. Watching it was painful. Not because it failed. Because it worked. Zhengkai defeated 3 academy teams in a single demonstration. The crowd applauded. MARA analyzed the synchronization pattern. Safety neutralization component absent. I watched the 6 students breathe in exactly the same rhythm. They removed blank page reset. Confirmed. Why? Reset interrupts group synchronization. That made the circuit more powerful. It also meant that if the rhythm became unstable, every user could be trapped inside the same error. I sent a written warning to the Academy and Crimson Antler. The Academy replied that the registered guild system had passed internal testing. Crimson Antler thanked me for my interest. Zhengkai replied personally. We have safeguards. I typed 3 responses and deleted all of them. Then I expanded grandmother's cupboard from 3 cubic meters to 112. It was easier to improve a ring than to persuade someone who believed ownership was evidence of responsibility. That belief would cost all of us more than I understood. Grandmother's cupboard became effectively limitless on a Tuesday afternoon. It also became completely useless. The recursive index expanded across thousands of folded coordinates tied to my soul rhythm. The available capacity increased faster than MARA could calculate it. I placed 1 formation nail inside. Then I tried to retrieve it. The ring gave me a left boot. I tried again. A cooking pot. Again. 300 blank flashcards. Again. The cabbage. Mo examined the formation. You have built the largest disorganized cupboard in the Republic. It needs indexing. It needs a grandmother. I should have asked for help. Instead, I created mental categories, chi labels, retrieval branches, and predictive access paths without telling Cyan or Mo how unstable the index remained. My examination was 8 days away. Crimson Antler owned the registered version of my techniques. My ranking had fallen to 51 because I could not use my modifications publicly. I could feel the walls closing around me, and my oldest instinct returned. Hide the work. Fix it alone. Reveal nothing until nobody can take it. Lantern House scheduled one final rescue simulation before the qualification examination. Our team needed to recover 3 constructs from a collapsed tunnel while carrying limited equipment. I stored everything in the ring. Ropes, lamps, medical seals, formation nails, water, support braces. Lian asked whether the new index was reliable. Yes. The lie came easily. That frightened me less than it should have. The simulation began well. Unwritten step carried me across loose stone. Returning current frame stabilized the first tunnel section. Mo located the trapped constructs. Then the ceiling shifted. Lian called for a support brace. I reached into the ring. A boot appeared. I tried again. 17 formation nails scattered across the ground. Again. The cooking pot. Again. The cabbage struck Mo in the chest. He caught it automatically. Bad time, he said. MARA flooded my vision with broken coordinate branches. The new index had collapsed under emergency retrieval pressure. I could still store almost anything. I could not find it. Capacity was not control. Mo used the scattered nails to improvise a support lattice. Lian abandoned the planned rescue route and directed us through a narrow side passage. We recovered the constructs with 40 seconds remaining. Lantern House marked the trial as a technical pass and an operational failure. Outside the simulation chamber, Lian closed the door behind us. You knew. I looked at the floor. That the index might fail. You knew. I believed I could stabilize it. That is not an answer. It is the truth. No, the truth would have been telling us before we put all the rescue equipment inside. Mo stood silently beside the cabbage. He was rarely silent. That was worse than Lian shouting. I did not want Crimson Antler learning how the ring worked, I said. We are not Crimson Antler. I know. Do you? The question landed harder than Zhenkai's palm ever had. Lian's voice lowered. You keep saying people steal your work. That happened. It was wrong. But you are using it to justify making every decision alone. You did not trust us with the risk, Lian. You only trusted us to stand under it. She left. Mo placed the cabbage on the workbench. She is right. I know. You say that often after things fall down. He followed her. The next day, Zhenkai challenged me again. This time, he used the Crimson Circuit with 2 linked students. I knew the synchronization flaw, but school rules prohibited me from exploiting an unverified safety concern during a match. Even if they had not, I was mentally exhausted from repairing the ring. The circuit surrounded me with coordinated feints. MARA could not separate 3 linked movement patterns quickly enough. I lost in 14 seconds. Zhenkai dismissed the other students and stood across from me. You are running out of time. Thank you, I had misplaced the calendar. Sign with Crimson Antler. You can repair the system from inside. You mean repair the parts your father removed? His expression changed. You think we removed something essential? I told you that. You said the synchronization could trap users in an unstable rhythm. Our trials found no such result. Your trials were conducted in controlled Qi environments. The national examination rift is rated stable. Rifts change. We have emergency release seals, which use the same synchronized Qi channel. He went quiet. For one moment, I thought I had reached him. Then he said, my father would never approve an unsafe system. There it was. Not ignorance. Faith. Zhenkai believed institutions were safer than individuals because his sister had been harmed by an irresponsible creator. If Crimson Antler was wrong, then his entire reason for supporting them became suspect. He was not protecting a technique. He was protecting the meaning he had built around his sister's injury. I understood that. I still could not let it endanger students. That evening, I found Lian in the rescue infirmary. I lied, I said. She continued sorting seals. I know. I was afraid. I know that too. I do not know how to share MARA. She looked up sharply. It was the first time I had spoken the system's name aloud. I explained everything. My previous life. The motion analysis program. The reincarnation. The soul interface. The cognitive cost. The false predictions. The ring. The reason I guarded it so aggressively. Lian listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Your mysterious soul intelligence sounds useful." It is. It also sounds like an overeducated abacus. MARA displayed. Assessment imprecise. I almost laughed. Lian did not forgive me immediately. That mattered. Instead, she said, no more hidden safety risks. No more. Mo helps organize the ring. Yes. I review every technique before anyone else uses it. Yes. And if your invisible abacus tells you people are predictable, ignore it. Frequently. Mo joined us an hour later carrying buns and a catalog ledger. He divided grandmother's cupboard into 8 retrieval channels based on function rather than object type. Rescue. Medical. Formation. Food. Tools. Clothing. Salvage. Unresolved cabbage-related equipment. The final category contained 1 item. The ring worked. Not because I had solved everything. Because I had finally stopped treating help as a security failure. The National Hunter Qualification examination began inside Hollow Pine Rift at 8 in the morning. 144 students entered in teams of 6. Our task was to recover 12 beacon seals across 3 zones and return within 90 minutes. Combat scores mattered, but rescue decisions, navigation, resource use, and team safety counted more. My team consisted of Lian, Mo, 3 Lantern House candidates, and me. Crimson Antler fielded 4 sponsored teams, using the unified combat circuit. Zhengkai led the first. Before we entered, he approached me in the staging plaza. You sent another warning. Yes. The emergency release seals were independently tested. In a live rift. No. Then they were tested in a room pretending to be a rift. He exhaled. If the circuit fails, I will shut it down. Can you? His eyes hardened. I regretted the question because it sounded like an insult. It was not. The system linked all 6 users through a central rhythm. Stopping one person without resetting the group could create backlash. He understood that now. I will handle my team, he said. The rift opened. Hollow Pine was colder than expected. Tall silverbark trees surrounded black pools and low stone ridges. Chi moved through the air in slow waves. Our first zone required navigation. Unwritten step adapted to the soft ground, but the team could not simply follow my movements. I used the civic forms as diagnostic tests, watching how each person shifted weight and responded to the terrain. For the first time, I applied the framework to people other than myself. MARA offered suggestions. Lian corrected the ones that ignored fear or fatigue. Together, we adjusted each teammate's stance. We recovered 4 beacons in 23 minutes. The second zone contained animated guardian constructs. Mo deployed formation stakes from the ring. 8 retrieval channels allowed me to draw tools almost instantly. We used 7-layer pulse to interrupt the constructs rather than destroy them. Another 4 beacons. 51 minutes remained. Then the rift changed. The first sign was the ashstone in my storage ring. 800 kilograms of fragments began absorbing loose chi at once. The second sign was the wind. It reversed. The third was a pressure wave that traveled through the trees and made every formation beacon ring. MARA displayed a red warning. Environmental chi frequency shifting. A distant burst of crimson light rose above the forest. Then another. Crimson Antlers teams. Their linked wristbands had synchronized each group to a single circulation rhythm. The changing rift frequency pulled at those patterns like a musician forcing an instrument toward a new note. The students could not stop. Their own techniques kept restarting the cycle. We reached the first trapped team after 6 minutes. All 6 students stood in a defensive formation around a beacon tower. Their movements repeated every 4 seconds. Guard, step, turn, release, reset to guard. Except there was no true reset. Their chi pressure rose with every cycle. Lian examined the nearest student without touching him. If we break the formation abruptly, the recoil hits all 6. Emergency seals, Mo asked. Same channel, I said. The seal would try to release through the rhythm, causing the problem. A guild examiner appeared through a communication mirror projected above the beacon. All independent teams are ordered to return to the exit immediately. Sponsored teams will be recovered by Crimson Antler personnel. The exit route was still open. Our 12 beacons were within reach. We could leave, pass the examination, and let Crimson Antler take responsibility for its own system. A part of me wanted to. Not because I wished harm on anyone. Because I wanted proof. I wanted the guild exposed so completely that nobody could rewrite the story and call my work theirs. Then the trapped student nearest me opened his eyes. He was the first-year boy who had injured his elbow copying 7-layer pulse. Crimson Antler had recruited him as a junior candidate after his recovery. His lips moved, but the formation forced his breathing into rhythm before he could speak. Lian looked at me. She did not tell me what to do. That was not her decision. It was mine. In my previous life, I had watched executives remove safety features to meet deadlines. I had warned them, documented everything, and waited for consequences to prove me right. I had promised myself that in a second life, I would never again let someone else's theft turn me into a spectator. We are not returning, I said. The mirror examiner began protesting. I cut the connection. Mo opened the catalog ledger. What do you need? Everything. He smiled nervously. That is why I made categories. I explained blank page, reset to the team. Not the shortened version. Not the part I thought they needed. Everything. Its purpose, timing, risks, and failure conditions. Lian adjusted the medical sequence. Mo mapped the formation nodes. The 3 Lantern House candidates took positions around the trapped students. MARA could not solve the rescue alone. It did not know their fear, injuries, or how the changing rift pressure affected each person. So I stopped treating it as an answer. I used it as one tool among 6 human minds. We broke the first team free in 7 minutes. Then the forest lit crimson in 4 more directions. Zhengkai's voice came through an emergency communication seal. His breathing was locked into the circuit rhythm. Lian, he forced out between cycles. The central formation is pulling every linked team toward the same pattern. How many students? 24. How long before meridian damage? 20 minutes. MARA calculated 17. I did not correct him. Stop resisting the rhythm, I said. Let it stabilize temporarily. That will deepen the link. I know. You have a plan. No. There was a pause. Under other circumstances, I would have enjoyed that. I have the beginning of one, I said. You are going to trust me with the rest. The center of Hollow Pine Rift contained a stone basin surrounded by 12 formation pillars. Crimson Antler's circuit had linked the students to the examination array. Every coordinated movement fed more chi into the pillars, and the pillars returned that rhythm through the rift. The technique was no longer merely trapping its users. It was teaching the entire dungeon to repeat them. We had 11 minutes before the exit formation closed. 24 trapped students stood across 4 linked groups. Zhenkai's team occupied the center. His father appeared through a guild communication projection above the basin. "Maintain formation," Director Yao ordered. "Crimson Antler recovery personnel are entering." "They will be linked the moment they activate the same method," I said. Director Yao looked at me. "You are not authorized to interfere with guild techniques." I almost admired the consistency. The rift shook. One formation pillar split near its base. Returning current frame could redirect the pressure, but not through my body alone. I looked at the ashstone fragments inside grandmother's cupboard. 812 kilograms of discarded material. Individually weak. Collectively useful. Just like the civic forms. Just like us. Mo, formation channel. He read from the catalog. Stakes, anchors, sealing wire ashstone. Deploy all ashstone around the 12 pillars. 3-layer cycle. The ring had 8 retrieval channels, but normal retrieval was too slow. Then I remembered its original defect. When full, grandmother's cupboard ejected the oldest stored object. The emergency ejection function bypassed the coordinate search. MARA, reverse the storage priority. Warning, uncontrolled sequential ejection. Direct by category. Probability of incorrect first object, 87%. Do it. The ring flashed. The cabbage shot out. It crossed the basin and struck Zhenkai's helmet. The sound was surprisingly solid. He stared at me while trapped inside a repeating combat stance. I stared back. Tactical value reassessed, MARA announced. Then the ashstone came. Hundreds of fragments streamed from the ring in controlled arcs. Mo directed them through formation channels around the pillars. The stones absorbed excess chi, darkening from gray to black. Lian and the Lantern House candidates moved between trapped students, measuring pulse, breath, and meridian pressure. They called the information to me. MARA built individual reset models. Not one universal solution. 24 personalized ones. Director Yao's projection flickered. "Stop this immediately. You are using an unregistered technique." Zhenkai turned his head against the forced rhythm. "Father." Director Yao continued speaking. "Maintain the circuit. Recovery teams are 3 minutes away." Zhenkai's chi pressure rose. He could preserve his father's authority, continue the technique, and hope Crimson Antler solved the crisis. Or he could admit the system was unsafe and order every sponsored student to abandon it in front of national examiners. His sister's injury had taught him that uncontrolled techniques destroyed lives. Now the institution he trusted had done exactly what he feared. He looked at the students around him, then at me. "Crimson Antler teams," he said, forcing each word between breaths. "Prepare to terminate synchronization on Su Lian's count." Director Yao shouted his name. Zhenkai ignored him. That decision saved them. "Returning current positions," I ordered. My team placed formation anchors around the basin. I entered the defensive posture from Form 8. 23 other students could not move freely, but they could align their feet as the circuit cycled. First pulse. I struck the nearest pillar with 7-layer pulse. 7 small releases traveled through the stone, loosening the rigid chi pattern without breaking the structure. The rift pressure surged. Returning current frame carried it through my stance, into the anchors, and across the ashstone network. My knees buckled. Lian caught my shoulder. "Do not absorb it alone. I am redirecting. You are lying with technical vocabulary." She took the second anchor position. Mo took the third. The Lantern House candidates completed the circle. The pressure spread across all 6 of us. Manageable. Painful, but manageable. "Blank page sequence," I called. Each trapped group began the final civic recovery form. The movements were small. A change in breath. A release through the shoulders. A shift of weight. Crimson Antler's circuit tried to restart the synchronization. Zhenkai resisted. His team followed. The second group broke rhythm. Then the third. The central pillar emitted a deep tone. MARA filled my vision with branching errors. Reset timing divergence detected. One student's damaged elbow could not complete the standard movement. The first-year boy. His old chi knot had left a weakness in the meridian. A universal reset would injure him. The original civic forms had failed because people stopped personalizing them. I would not repeat that mistake. Lian, his right arm. Limited extension. Reduce 7th circulation by 12%. MARA, recalculate. Complete. I changed the sequence. The boys' rhythms separated safely. One by one, the remaining students returned to their natural circulation. The basin cracked. The exit formation began closing early. Mo. Supplies channel. Grandmother's cupboard ejected rescue ropes, portable barriers, medical packs, lamps, water containers, support braces, and one folding stool nobody remembered packing. We formed evacuation lines. Zhenkai remained beside the central pillar. The circuit is still linked to the array, he said. Someone has to shut down the registration core. I'll do it. You do not know the guild control sequence. You do. Yes. He placed his hand on the pillar. Director Yao's projection returned. Zhenkai, do not release the core. Crimson Antler will lose ownership verification. There it was. The final truth. The registration core was preserving the guild's claim to the technique, even while it endangered the students. Zhenkai looked at his father. Then he broke the seal. The crimson circuit dissolved into harmless lines of fatting light. The rift pressure dropped. We crossed the exit with 42 seconds remaining. I was the last student through. Grandmother's cupboard ejected the cabbage behind me just before the portal closed. For one terrible moment, I considered going back for it. Then the ring tugged against my soul. The cabbage reappeared inside. Even in crisis, the ownership seal worked perfectly. I collapsed on the examination plaza, laughing so hard Lian thought I had suffered chi deviation. Maybe I had. But all 144 students returned alive. For the first time in the history of the examination, a candidate team received a perfect rescue score without completing the beacon objective. We recovered only 8. Apparently saving 24 competitors was worth the missing 4. The investigation lasted 17 days. Crimson Antler's registered files proved its researchers had observed my public techniques, removed blank page reset to preserve group synchronization, and ignored 3 internal warnings about environmental resonance. One of those warnings had come from Zhenkai. He had submitted it after our second conversation. His father had overruled him. That did not erase Zhenkai's choices, but it changed how I understood them. He had trusted the institution too long, yet he had not remained silent. Crimson Antler lost its exclusive sponsorship agreement with 9 Rivers Cultivation High School. Its student contracts were suspended for review. The guild had to pay treatment costs, examination damages, and restitution to students whose techniques had been used without proper attribution. My ownership claim was complicated because the foundation method belonged to the public. That was exactly what I wanted. The Republic recognized the 12 Civic Foundation Forms as open foundational knowledge and registered my adaptive safety architecture under a protected public license. No guild could own the base method. Commercial schools could create advanced versions, but they had to preserve the neutralization sequence, disclose modifications, and allow students to transfer their personal calibration records. The basic framework remained free. I received credit as its principal restorer rather than exclusive owner. In my previous life, that would have felt insufficient. In this one, it felt correct. I did not create the 12 forms. I finished a conversation begun by teachers who had died decades before I was born. Zhengkai lost his automatic Crimson Antler captaincy. He graduated, but he had to sit the independent qualification examination again because his first result relied on a suspended guild system. He passed 2 months later using the ordinary civic forms. When I asked why, he said, "I wanted to understand what we copied." That was the closest thing to an apology he knew how to give. His father resigned as regional director. Crimson Antler did not collapse. Large institutions rarely disappear because one person is exposed. They restructure, rename committees, and promise improved oversight in expensive brochures. But Director Yao no longer controlled student recruitment, and every academy contract in the region became shorter, clearer, and transferable. Consequences did not need to destroy everything to matter. Sometimes, they only needed to remove the hand from the lever. Lantern House offered Lian a rescue apprenticeship. She accepted before they finished speaking. Mo became the guild's youngest trainee quartermaster after demonstrating the ring catalog during the Hollow Pine rescue. His official job involved equipment logistics. His unofficial job involved preventing me from storing items under categories such as useful later and probably not cursed. Lantern House offered me a place as an adaptive methods specialist. The salary was modest. The work was dangerous. The contract was 4 pages long, cancelable with 30 days' notice, and claimed ownership of nothing created outside paid assignments. I signed. My first months were not glorious. I used returning current frame to stabilize damaged bridges. Unwritten step helped me cross collapsed buildings. 7-layer pulse opened jammed dungeon doors without bringing down the walls around them. 1000-tool axis allowed me to work with whatever equipment survived the journey, including poles, hammers, broken formation stakes, and one memorable frying pan. Blank page reset became the most requested part of the framework. Not because it won fights, because it stopped people from losing themselves inside techniques they could not safely end. MARA continued evolving. It never became all-knowing. It still misread frightened people. It still exhausted me during long simulations. It still required real data, honest questions, and other minds willing to challenge its answers. That turned out to be a strength. A tool that cannot replace people is less likely to convince you that people are unnecessary. Grandmother's cupboard expanded until MARA stopped producing a useful capacity estimate. Effectively limitless did not mean infinite in the philosophical sense. It meant Mo could pack 6 months of rescue supplies, 3 portable shelters, 200 formation stakes, emergency food for 40 people, and enough tea to survive Cyan's moods without noticeably filling it. The ring remained tied entirely to me. Anyone else wearing it saw only one object. The cabbage. We tried removing it. The false pocket recreated it. We tried cooking it. The cooked cabbage appeared in the real storage, while a fresh one returned to the false pocket. MARA classified the phenomenon as an unresolved recursion anchor. Mo classified it as immortality. Cyan classified it as dinner. At graduation, I stood on the same sponsorship platform where Director Yao had offered me the 12-year contract. My mother sat in the first row, wearing her best green coat. She had closed the dumpling stall for the afternoon, which she described as a greater sacrifice than anything I had done in Hollow Pine Rift. I received an independent bronze hunter license, a public method restoration award, and a bill confirming that my 2,400 spirit credit subsidy debt had been canceled. The academy head asked me to demonstrate the completed framework. I began with Form 1. No explosions. No divine beasts. No legendary weapons. Just breath, posture, weight and chi adjusted to the person using them. The movements linked into unwritten step, 7-layer pulse, returning current frame, 1000-tool axis, and blank page reset. MARA displayed the integrated name. Civic Adaptive Martial Framework. Mo shouted from the audience, supreme heaven-devouring infinite free lunch scripture. The headmaster pretended not to hear him. The ring flashed. The cabbage flew across the stage and landed in Zhenkai's hands. He looked down at it. Then he walked over and returned it to me with the solemnity of a ceremonial sword. "Your tactical equipment," he said. I placed it back inside grandmother's cupboard. MARA displayed its familiar message. Unresolved tactical equipment secured. Everyone else had spent fortunes searching for secret inheritances, ancient bloodlines, and techniques locked behind guild contracts. I became a hunter with a free school warm-up, a broken ring, 2 stubborn friends, and the discovery that the greatest paths were sometimes hidden inside instructions powerful people had stopped bothering to read.